How's it hanging, dudes? My name is Sean, and welcome back to Brutal Games and another Cyberpunk 2077 video. And okay, so I set out to make a lore video, kind of just like a basic lore video, so we can all just kind of have like a nice little background to start, the game with, kind of, a video to kind of look back on and kind of see what the lore is all about, and just a nice little, I guess, a condensed version, just so we can kind of easily piece it all together for future reference. And holy shite, did I not understand and definitely underestimated the rabbit hole that I went down. And I kid you not, I have very little sleep right now, and I have been up quite a while researching as much of this as I possibly can. And of course, again, unless we're going to have an hour-long video, I've got to condense most of it down, so I had to pick and choose certain things. There's a couple articles that I've read. There's also quite a bit of the wiki that I've read. The wiki will definitely be in the description, like it always is, or in the comment section. So smack a like if you're fucking excited for Cyberpunk 2077, because I know I am. And without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the lore. Now, you have to take a look at all of the backstory, the previous games, the tabletop games and stuff like that, to really get an understanding of the lore, the settings, the story, the characters, the classes, and a lot of that has carried over from the tabletop game and a couple of the games as well. However, I do want to stress the fact that I have also been kind of concerned that this game is so big in scope that it would be rushed and not fully complete, because there's so much lore they have to put into it. But I've been coming across so much stuff of CD Projekt Red being extremely vigilant on making this game a worthwhile scenario to play, and to the point where they've said stuff like this:
"We make sure to root every detail in the world's lore, so everything has its purpose and stays believable."
Or even if you're looking to get hired through CD Projekt Red, they literally tell you this right here, and that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like they're really hyper vigilant on making a good game. So let's get on into the lore. CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the most anticipated games on the horizon right now. The Polish studio is adapting Cyberpunk video game closely and loosely based from the tabletop RPG written by Mike Pondsmith, the first published, I think it was in 1988. The game has been through 3 iterations. The first 2 was like Cyberpunk 13, Cyberpunk 2020, since the 2020s, fell a little close. It's no surprise that CD Projekt Red have thrown the universe forward to year 2077 in their own interpretation, especially because it's a video game. It's kind of hard to adapt everything. With the tabletop game providing the backdrop for the video game, there's much we can learn about the world, the weapons, the characters of Cyberpunk 2077 universe. So I thought we would take a close look at it to I guess let us know what to expect from CDPR's first AAA since The Witcher 3, believe it or not. This game's been in development for like 6 years, dudes. Cyberpunk 2077 story and setting. The Cyberpunk is set in a dystopian near future amid a fictional Californian city named Night City, as we discussed in the previous video. You can check that out. After its founder, Richard Knight, between then and now, the USA has suffered a vast socio-economic collapse that has ripples throughout the world, throwing the entire planet, but especially the West, into chaos. The enfeebled US government has only maintained order with the aid of a number of megacorporations, some of which may seem very familiar. Like we discussed in the last video, like I think EBM is easily based off of IBM, and Arasaka is, which we'll get into later, is a company based off an actual Japanese-based company. So they're really trying to get this, like kind of like in GTA, how like a lot of the make and models of cars would be loosely based off of real life stuff. That's kind of what they're going with in Cyberpunk 2077, and actually in previous games too. They're just taking it and extrapolating it forward. It all starts to go wrong in 1990 as far as cyberpunk lore goes, when the U.S. intervenes disastrously in a Central American war. This, together with the release of U.S.-developed plagues targeting drug plants, stokes anti-American sentiment among powerful Central American cartels. With the backing of the European Union, who are much more competitive in the alternate universe, these cartels prosecute a savage drug war all over the Americas. In 1993, they are even able to detonate a small nuclear device in New York, killing tens of thousands. Now, that's not canon anymore. The whole nuclear device in New York or Night City, other places like that as you might see mention of, that's all not canon anymore. Otherwise, a lot of these places wouldn't be able to function. So we jumped ahead in 1996, and the president and vice president are assassinated. The U.S. government fragments. The NSA, CIA, FBI, DEA, all the alphabet soup of the government, form gangs of four and collude to further their own interest. They become their own corporation. Criminals, gangs, and other establishments are emboldened all over the country. One of them, the Bloods, take almost total control of Miami, for example. Executive authority is passed down the ranks, and the defense secretary, who suspends the Constitution and declares martial law. By now, one of four Americans are homeless, leading the huge Mad Max-style gangs of violent nomads. And not far from how the country's kind of going now, right? Over the next few years, toxic spills from the coast of Seattle ravage its economy. 10.5 earthquake shatters Los Angeles. Tensions in the Middle East escalate to nuclear exchange, reducing much of the region into radioactive slag and halving the world's oil supply. Several states succeed from the United States, including California. You get the idea. Everyone has, pretty much a very happy bad time. Corporate power has been waxing across the globe as business exploits the opportunities created by this chaos. Corporations have been training their own armies as early as 1977. We'll get into that later. And ultimately, the enfeebled U.S. government has no choice but to turn to them for help, containing the nomads, gangs, the cartels running rampant across the country. The corporations take most of what they liberate for themselves and only grow stronger. Governments across the world, and especially in U.S., are then powerless to prevent a series of corporate wars. So yeah, it kind of just devolves down into a small cycle of just chaos of gangs fighting corporations, Mad Max style nomadic bike tribes, which hopefully we'll be able to see somewhat in the desert that surrounds Night City in Cyberpunk 2077. So that's going to be kind of cool to kind of look forward to in the future. But that's pretty much all we have to know, to bring us up to date on, as far up to Cyberpunk 2030s and then into 2077. Cyberpunk's fictional timeline continues for many more years, but from here on out, it's kind of an esoteric account of escalating intercorporate wars that probably won't mean a lot to you. Basically, nukes, natural disasters, and everyone's screwed, and a lot of that's not even canon. Also, bear in mind that since the last edition, V3 of the board game, it's set in the 2030s, right? So CD Projekt Red will have come up with another few decades of history, which no one outside the project will currently know about. Which means, no doubt that things have improved. There's going to be a lot more, implants, biotech, different cybernetic wearing, fashion wear, stuff like that. I did a video about implants and stuff like that, so you guys can check that out too. And as we break more of that stuff down, we'll be getting into a lot of that in future videos. So CD Projekt Red is pretty much, they can do whatever they want as long as it stays within the realms of what's actually happened within Cyberpunk 2077. And as far as I can tell, the nukes and some of the natural disasters and some of the company's rises are not canon. But for the most part, everything you read besides the nuke won't really affect the game that you play or the story that you pick for your character. Now, the largest thing about the lore in Cyberpunk is the mega corporations. They pretty much run everything. If you're not a corpo, you're nothing. The game's going to be so much harder if you don't choose the corpo line. I mean, that's from what I can see. Cyberpunk megacorporations are spawned in the unregulated industrial cesspool they demanded in return for helping the faltering U.S. government contain a series of domestic crises. They are presented as a vision of what might happen, and to some extent did, in the era of the robber barons that we just discussed. If market forces were let entirely off the leash, right? Theoretically. In the main, they are self-serving, amoral, and profit-driven, and we can expect many of them to be major antagonists in the video game. Especially, even if you are a corpo, there's going to be other corporations that you're going to be struggling against to fight to gain dominance over, to help your corporation, I guess, gain ambiguity over other ones. And that said, even given CDPR's fondness for moral ambiguity, firmly established in the Witcher series, we doubt all corporations will be. Now, and you remember when I told you that like a lot of these corporations will be mirrored off of real life corporations. You know, some of the corporations within Cyberpunk 2077 are things like Microtech, Mitsubishi Sugo, which is a transportation manufacturer. Microtech is a computer electronics, which is obviously a clear reference to Microsoft. If you guys want me to do a long list of every single corporation that we know of in Cyberpunk 2077 that has an actual real life counterpart, let me know in the comment section below. I'll be glad to do that. It's just I don't want to make this video any longer than it needs to be. So yeah, but one company that we definitely need to focus on to really get the I guess the crux of why the lore is so important is the Arasaka mega corporation. Now, Arasaka did not found Night City. Their headquarters is in Japan, obviously. And if you want to know who founded Night City and you want to know the backstory about Night City and how it came to be, check the video I did yesterday. I'll, of course, you know, links, description, comments, something like that. So yeah, guys, let's get into Arasaka, a huge Japanese zaibatsu dealing in corporate security, whose megalomaniac, excuse me, that's a hard word to say, megalomaniacal CEO is obsessed with turning Japan into a superpower. Along with the EDM, Microtech, Orbital Air Network News, mainstream media, right? and Militech, they are one of the several mega corporations shown in the new ticker during the Cyberpunk 2077 trailer, and you could also see a lot more about them in the expanded 48-minute gameplay trailer, which I probably have playing in the background. So their presence in the game's world is confirmed. And they're probably going to be like have the biggest presence in the world. But let's head over to the wiki page and kind of take a look at everything that Arasaka has to do with Cyberpunk. And the Corporation Report 2020 Volume 1 says, when most people think of Arasaka, the picture in their mind is that of a black-clad guards employed by many corporations, businesses, and powerful individuals throughout the world. The Arasaka Corporation is a worldwide megacorporation dealing in corporate security, banking, and manufacturing. They wield more financial power than any other single corporation and use subversive tactics such as blackmail, extortion, and bribery to influence the world around them. They're pretty much like a modern-day Pinkerton Detective Agency, or a futuristic Pinkerton Detective Agency from like Red Dead Redemption, where they do whatever they have to do to get, you know, air quotes, justice to the person that they're paid to take down, right? So Arasaka specializes in protective services and the distribution of their Japanese-made products throughout North America. Over the years, it has developed a dark reputation as a corporation that is to be feared, and which covers its tracks using cyber assassins and army of lawyers, as well as an alleged connection to the Yakuza. So they try to being as there's a long timeline of Cyberpunk 2077, and our timelines mix in together, and you know, and I guess diversify and spread out. They're definitely trying to bring in as many real life, I guess, innuendos and references they possibly can, which is really cool to know. The Arasaka Corporation has founded sometime in the early 1900s by Sasai Arasaka. Sasai Arasaka in Tokyo, Japan. The company originally focused on manufacturing and took advantage of World War II to forward their wealth and power. Founder Sasai Arasaka foresaw the defeat of Japan and worked to ensure his company and wealth would survive the war by spreading his wealth across the globe and out of the reach of the post-war leadership. In 1960, Sasai Arasaka died, and his son Saburo took control of the company. A former lieutenant in the Imperial Japanese Navy, he shared his father's vision of Japan being a commercial and economic post-war powerhouse. After his near-death and subsequent discharge in 1942, he studied economics, politics, and history for his eventual rise to power within the company, and began the process of retrieving his father's widespread wealth. During this time, the company was relatively small and had only just begun to assert itself on the world stage, and Saburo established a new division of the company, Arasaka Security, and that's where things heat up. By the mid-1990s, the security division had developed a reputation for being the best in the field and personally working in some of the most powerful and influential corporations around the world. After the world market collapsed in 1994, Saburo used his shrewd business knowledge to ensure the company wouldn't just survive, but thrive in a post-collapse world, which it eventually ended up collapsing. Arasaka became one of the largest and wealthiest corporations following the collapse, and soon the company began absorbing many smaller companies, as well as creating one of the finest private paramilitary organizations the world has ever seen. At some point between 97 and 2020, Saburo stepped down as the CEO of Arasaka and installed his son, Ki, to take over. However, his son was just a puppet, as all decisions still go through Saburo. Time will tell if Ki is given the full reins to the company. Now, I'm thinking that Saburo and Ki may be some of the leading competitors that you'll fight or come up against in the game. Maybe even meet them. Now, Saburo, you would think he might be dead, but as we know in Cyberpunk history, the cybernetics and the implants that would greatly extend your life would be very easily obtainable by the super rich, and it would also be very easily accessible as they the advancements in technology come along. Now, as far as Arasaka's involvement with the nuclear means and Militech and stuff like that, it's really not canon, so you really can't take it. So I'm really not going to I'm just going to kind of glance over it. Like during the Fourth Corporate War, the Arasaka Corporation faced off against Militech, which resulted in a nuclear bomb being detonated in the center of Night City. Saburo's plan was world domination, and it was becoming a reality as he retreated his forces back to Japan, where it had stockpiled several nuclear missiles with the help of its ally North Korea. The Japanese self-defense force managed to crush Asaka's forces and delivered Saburo Asaka's head to the United States. It is assumed Arasaka Corporation folded after this event. Of course, this is not canon anymore. Arasaka Corporation is still the largest mega corporation in Cyberpunk 2077. As far as I know, so that's not canon. I do want to include that as a bit of context, as far as old games go, because you will come across stuff like this, and people will talk about this. Just know that it's not going to be part of 2077. Beyond maybe an Easter egg, I don't know. So the security division, which is the largest thing that Arasaka has really been known for up to this point. The largest and most well-known sector of Arasaka is their security division. When most people think of Arasaka, they picture in their minds that the black-clad guards employed by so many corporations, businesses, and powerful individuals throughout the world, like we said earlier. Their personnel and logo are ubiquitous with everyday life, with their guards being seen almost across the globe as important corporation locations, or their logos plastered on everything, from buildings to vehicles to weapons and electronics. They're pretty much the police force of the world. It is widely accepted that the best way to secure your interests is to simply employ Arasaka rather than spending millions on the manpower and training and equipment, much like the Solos do or other corpos who want to compete with Arasaka. Corporate security guards. In the world of Cyberpunk 2020, the standard contracted security is outdated and inadequate. In the old days, some punks or gangs would break in and steal some equipment like a TV or designer clothes. Now that punk or gang is most likely to be a heavily armed group intent on stealing corporate secrets and abducting a high-value individual, and they are not afraid of using guns or violence to achieve their goal. As much Arasaka develops their security division to create an effective countermeasure against such acts, and their forces are highly trained at the Arasaka School of Hokkaido, northern Japan. Arasaka can contract out between 1 to 1,000 guards depending on the client's needs, and pay rates can vary to the level of equipment and armaments. Clients are able to pick up and choose personnel based on their gender or language, fluent in Japanese, German, Spanish, English, Italian, Chinese, Mandarin, Cantonese, Korean, French. They got it all. Arasaka is literally global. However, they will need to have some basic understanding of the English language. I think likely that's where the game comes into play. Different levels of security can be hired, from the ultra discreet plain clothes security to the obvious and threatening armed uniformed guards. However, all contracted security will display the Arasaka logo to ensure the public and enemies know that they are dealing with the Arasaka. Now, Arasaka also has a manufacturing division. They also have a banking division. They have many notable employees. The Arasaka family is huge and widespread, from Sasai to Saburo to Ki to Hanako as her Arasaka, which is the 21-year-old daughter. She would led a sheltered life in the confines of the Arasaka family compound. She might come into play within the game. I don't know. She was only 21-year-old daughter of Saburo, and who knows? Ki might have children of their own. I don't know. We just don't know. Shinto Takamaya is Arasaka's director of security and a very dangerous individual, a very loyal friend to Saburo, and also is a close confidant to Hanako. Katsuo Iwashima is a weapons expert and second in command of the Arasaka family compound. He secretly covets Shintaro's job and is also in love with Hanako. He keeps that a secret. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to do with all this. Now, the Tokyo headquarters, which is, Arasaka headquarters, I think will be relocated to Night City, just so this family drama could probably play out if you choose to go the Corpo route. I mean, it's just all speculation on my point. I don't really know about that, but this right here gives us a base of lore. There's going to be plenty more lore videos to come, just because there's so much to go through here, guys. There's hours and hours and hours of stuff. Like, there's so many other corporations, there's different groups, and how these groups fight against each other. But in an effort to make this video short and keep them concise, that's what we're going to do. We're going to end the video here, so we have a basic knowledge of where Night City came from. We learned that yesterday in the video before, and now we know about the mega corporations and where Night City and the globe has gone since its early years all the way up until 2077. This kind of gives us a nice little backstory for the lore to kind of get a good basis to start. And man, I'm getting super excited for this game. I can't freaking wait. I've got more videos coming out, more stuff to plan. I got more indie games planned. I know those aren't as popular, but I like to keep it diversified. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, guys. Type away. And if you scissor kick pigeons, make sure you like and subscribe. And until next time, piss off.